The NFL has changed a lot over the years, and today I want to discuss why I believe the Raiders should seriously consider going after Daniel Jones, who was recently released by the New York Giants. However, I also have some reservations about this move and why it might not be the best choice for the Raiders. On one hand, bringing in a player like Jones could be a great opportunity for the team to improve. He could be the quarterback we need for next season, allowing us to enhance our roster without reaching for a player who may not be ready for the big leagues. We'll dive into all of this, plus I'll share my thoughts on the upcoming Broncos game and give you my underdog picks for the week. Additionally, I want to highlight our secondary coach, Ricky Manning, who is being recognized as one of the best in the NFL. He recently spoke about the young cornerbacks on our team, who deserve a lot of credit for their success, and Ricky has played a significant role in that. So let's jump right in and start with the quarterback situation. The NFL has seen many players rise and fall over the years. For example, Ryan Tannehill was once considered a bust, but found success with a different team. We've also seen players like Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold labeled as busts, only for Mayfield to have a breakout year last season and Darnold to shine this year. These quarterbacks may not be top 5 in the league, but their teams are winning and competing for playoff spots. This raises an important question. Can the Raiders bring in a quarterback like Daniel Jones and achieve similar success? I believe there's a possibility that our management, Tom Telesco and Antonio Pierce, are having discussions about this. We previously brought in Gardner Minshew as a veteran presence to help develop a rookie quarterback. If we don't draft a young player, Minshew could end up being our starter, and we could aim to win games that way. But remember, the 2025 NFL Draft isn't guaranteed. While many people are saying Shedeur Sanders is the best quarterback in this class, we can't be sure of that. In past drafts, we've heard similar claims about other players, and not all of them turned out to be as great as expected. So the question remains, is it worth taking a chance on Daniel Jones? Let's explore this further. Daniel Jones has the potential to be a very good football player. He was the #1 overall pick, but we've seen many players drafted in later rounds become stars. So it's not a guarantee that if the Raiders have, say, the 7th overall pick, we'll end up selecting one of the quarterbacks available. We also can't assume that there will be 3 or 4 first-round caliber quarterbacks in this draft. The Raiders need to take all these factors into account. For instance, we don't know if Shedeur Sanders will be the right fit for us or if Cam Ward is truly the guy we need. Right now, Cam Ward is getting a lot of buzz, with teams saying he's ready for the pros. There are other quarterbacks generating interest too, like Garrett Nussmeier, who some are comparing to last year's standout, J.J. McCarthy. Then there's Jalen Milroe, who might be a first-round pick for some teams, with hopes that he could develop into a great quarterback like Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts did. If the Raiders decide to go for someone like Jalen Milroe, they'll need a reliable quarterback for the next year or two to help him grow. They need someone who can win games while also showing potential free agents that the team is competitive. This is crucial for attracting key players, similar to how the Raiders managed to sign Christian Wilkins this past offseason. Daniel Jones is an intriguing option because we don't fully know his potential. Sometimes a change of scenery can really benefit a quarterback. Pairing him with a new offensive coordinator or a different system can help him improve. However, I also have my doubts about Jones. I've seen him struggle at times, and this season he had several rough performances. He often has difficulty playing within the structure of the offense and getting the ball out quickly. While I recognize that Daniel Jones has talent, I'm hesitant because I worry about his consistency and ability to perform at a high level. Let's keep exploring this topic and see what makes the most sense for the Raiders moving forward. Let's talk about quarterbacks for a moment, starting with someone like Desmond Ridder. Ridder is still very raw as a player. He hasn't had much time to develop properly. On the other hand, Daniel Jones has had the chance to grow under coach Brian Daboll. In fact, DeBoll helped Jones improve enough to find some success in the 2022 season. Back then, Jones had around 23 or 24 total touchdowns and only 6 or 7 turnovers. It was a solid season for both him and the Giants. But lately, Jones seems to have fallen off. I've watched some of his tape from this season, specifically 2 games, to understand what's really going on with the Giants. One major issue I noticed is their offensive line. Historically, it's been bad, and this year hasn't been much better. For example, in their first game of the season against the Minnesota Vikings, the offensive line struggled right from the start. On the opening drive, the right tackle got beat so quickly that the tight ends hadn't even finished their routes. Jones was already under pressure, took a sack, and ended up losing the down. Later, on a third down, he passed to the running back, who dropped the ball, picked it up, and still lost 6 yards. These little mistakes pile up and make it hard to build momentum. Now, I'm not saying Daniel Jones is blameless. He's definitely part of the problem, but the overall situation is messy. Switching gears a bit, let's talk about the Raiders. There's a real chance they'll look to upgrade at quarterback next season. If they somehow get the first overall pick, they'll likely go for a top rookie quarterback. But if they end up with the 6th or 7th pick, things get trickier. Remember, the Raiders still have some winnable games ahead, like against the Jaguars, Broncos, and Saints. Meanwhile, the Giants releasing Daniel Jones and moving to their backup could mean they lose most, if not all, of their remaining games. This puts them in a better position to land a top draft pick. As for the Raiders, they might not tank under Antonio Pierce. He seems more focused on winning games than worrying about the draft. The big question is, will the Raiders stick with what they have or aim higher? With players like Christian Wilkins, Jack Jones, Nate Hobbs, and others getting healthy, the team still has a chance to pull off some wins. It's an interesting situation to watch unfold. Antonio Pierce seems determined to win games, and it's clear why. He wants to secure his job as the Raiders' head coach. His focus on winning makes sense, but the conversation about Daniel Jones adds an interesting twist. If the Raiders bring in Daniel Jones, what does that mean for their draft strategy? Would signing him mean they skip drafting a quarterback this year? It's a tricky decision. There's also the financial aspect. What kind of contract would Jones expect? Would he ask for $20 million a year, or even $30, $40, or $50 million? That's a lot of money compared to a rookie quarterback on a much cheaper deal. Rookie contracts are like a cheat code. They give you a promising player at a fraction of the cost, freeing up money to build the rest of the team. Now, shifting gears, let's talk about Ricky Manning. He's been doing an outstanding job, and I think he deserves a lot of credit, especially when it comes to developing defensive backs. He emphasizes constant improvement and learning from mistakes, which is vital for a cornerback. One of the key lessons Manning teaches is resilience. Every cornerback will give up catches at some point, but it's about how they respond. As Manning says, corners need to have a short memory. Forget the bad plays quickly, learn from them, and focus on the next one. It's a mindset that both head coach Antonio Pierce and defensive coordinator Patrick Graham emphasize next play mentality. This resilience has been evident in players like Jacorian Bennett, who has shown steady improvement throughout the season. On crucial third downs, Bennett has made several big plays, like pass breakups that help shut down opposing offenses. These moments aren't just lucky. They're a result of consistent training and preparation, starting all the way back in the offseason and training camp. The next few games will be especially important for these younger defensive backs. As they step into bigger roles, their ability to stay confident, adapt, and make key plays will be crucial for the team's success. It's exciting to see how these players rise to the challenge in the weeks ahead. Giving younger players a chance to step up is crucial, especially in the next man up mentality that defines football. It's not just important for their development, but also for the team as a whole. When they're not on the field, I always remind them to be the eyes for their teammates. helping out, and staying engaged. Now, as they get more playing time, it's a critical opportunity to gain experience and grow. Many of these younger guys didn't get much playing time earlier, not because they weren't good enough, but because the veterans ahead of them were just that solid. Learning from experienced players has been valuable, but now it's time to see how much they've absorbed. Our defensive program is designed to develop skills both on and off the field. Whether it's working on techniques during scout team drills, staying sharp after practice, or diving into film study with the coaches, there's always a focus on improving. That preparation shows when younger players finally get their shot in games. For example, the recent games have given players like Jakorian Bennett and Sam Webb a chance to step up. Bennett has been rotating in more and gaining valuable experience. Sam Webb, despite limited action, showed no fear and held his own on the field. It's encouraging to see these young players respond confidently to the challenges of the NFL. The NFL doesn't slow down for anyone, so players coming back from injuries like Jakorian Bennett have to catch up quickly. From the start, we've seen his potential. Even when sidelined, Bennett consistently demonstrated his effort, speed, and ability during practice. His size, length, and athleticism make him a standout, and he plays with heart and determination. Ricky Manning, the defensive backs coach, has spoken highly of Bennett and others, highlighting their ability to learn from mistakes and bounce back stronger. Bennett, for example, is not only physically gifted, but also intelligent and resilient. These are traits that will help him thrive as he gains more experience on the field. The upside for these young players is tremendous, and it's exciting to see how they'll continue to grow and contribute to the team. Cameron Richardson has been showing a lot of promise, and one play that stands out to me is when he faced off against Tyreek Hill. In the first attempt, Hill easily beat him, but the quarterback didn't throw the ball his way. A couple of plays later, Hill tried to use the same move, but this time Richardson didn't fall for it. He stayed focused and shut Hill down. It was a great example of how quickly a player can learn from a mistake and improve. These little moments are what make a good football player, and I think a lot of credit goes to Ricky Manning for developing these guys. The Raiders have a solid secondary with players like Corey Bennett, Jack Jones, and Nate Hobbs, all of whom are playing well. Manning and defensive coordinator Patrick Graham have had a huge impact on their success. Their coaching has been essential, and I believe that as the Raiders move forward, Richardson could be another player who really steps up and makes an impact. Another player worth mentioning is Trayvon Merrick. Since Patrick Graham came on board, Merrick has been playing at a high level, both last year and this season. He's been one of the Raiders' best defenders. The same can be said for other secondary players like Isaiah Pola-Mao, who has also developed under this coaching staff. I'm really impressed with what Ricky Manning has done for the Raiders' secondary. In fact, I spoke to someone who believes Manning will be a defensive coordinator in the next 5 years. He's a special coach, and other teams are definitely taking notice of his work. I also think there's a chance Patrick Graham could be a head coach in the future, especially if Antonio Pierce remains with the Raiders. If the team continues to succeed, there's a good chance Graham could be picked up by another team. The Raiders' success next season could depend on a few key things: getting healthy on defense, finding a solid quarterback, and bringing in a reliable offensive coordinator. If they can make those moves, success will follow. Now, moving on to some predictions for the upcoming games. I think Caleb Williams and the USC Trojans will face a tough challenge against the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings have an opportunistic defense, so I expect Williams to throw at least one interception. I'm going with the higher on that. Also, Cooper Rush of the Dallas Cowboys threw the ball 55 times last week against the Washington Commanders. It'll be interesting to see if he can continue that kind of production in the upcoming game. For my picks this week, I'm going with the higher on 33.5 passing attempts for Cooper Rush. The Cowboys are facing the Washington Commanders, and I expect the Commanders to score at least 30 points. That would force the Cowboys to play catch-up, which means Rush will probably be throwing the ball a lot. Next, I'm taking the higher on Brock Bowers for at least 80 yards in the upcoming game against the Broncos. The Broncos know Bowers is a great player and will likely focus on stopping him, but Bowers was targeted heavily last week. He had 15 targets and 13 catches. With that kind of volume, 80 yards is definitely doable for him. As for Bo Nix, he's facing the Las Vegas Raiders. While I love the Raiders' secondary and coaching, let's be realistic. Tua Tagovailoa threw for around 290 yards against the Raiders last week. I think the Raiders' offense will score points against the Broncos, and that'll push Nix to keep up. I'm expecting him to throw for at least 220 yards in this game. Lastly, I'm going with the higher on Bryce Young for at least 20 rushing yards. The Kansas City Chiefs are going to make things tough for Young, and I think he'll end up taking off and running. Last week, he rushed for 30 yards, so 20 yards this week seems very attainable with just a couple of runs. So there you have it, my picks for the week. This one's a $20 entry for a chance to win over $1,100. If you want to make your own picks on Underdog, be sure to use the link in the comments below. Hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you next time with another video.